Hi, Johnny.
Hello.
I'll give it just a minute while people start coming in, okay?
Hi, Tex. Hey, Jonathan.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, hello.
Hey, good day.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Moritz always in the shadows.
Well, it's 11 p.m. So.
Yes. What?
Yeah, if everyone wants to just pop in their affiliations there, we'll keep that up as a good practice.
Nice to see Arnaud. Long time no see.
Lucas, if you're ready to go, we do have quorum.
Okay, cheers. So, welcome everyone. I'm Lucas. So I was voted in October. I'm still spinning up because we've had Constitution and all a lot happening. But I'm going to try to be more available to discuss and to be a liaison to anyone that wants to clarify anything outside the biweekly calls that we have set up. For today, this is the last call of the year, and we've been going around, especially the charter, which is now published. I'm going to drop the link for that on the chat. And so this is something that is matured from what we had published before. And I really wanted to encourage everyone to have a look at it and provide us any feedback. The goal, as I said, we've been going around this for a while, would be that we have some sentiment of closure now and say, okay, this is good to go, and this is what we are considering our charter for 2025. Yeah, sorry, I dropped the wrong link. I was on my notes. That one, the first one I dropped is about the budget and all. So on this, does anyone have any thoughts to share for now? Does anyone have a look at it?
If I may, I'll jump in real quickly here. This first page, first part of this, we reviewed last week and everyone seemed to be in agreement with. That goes through the responsibility section. Main edits were going to be in the core values section. Basically, last week, Jörg had made some edits to the open, the quality, and the citizenship, and I saw no comments that detracted from that, so I just changed those. As far as the sustainable, I was able to grab a new statement entirely and put this in here, more in lines with what we were thinking of what the discussion was, and that everyone was kind of, I wouldn't say upset, but not necessarily liking the previous statement. So this sustainable section is definitely going to be the biggest one that's, just make sure we have that agreement on. So far, it seems like everyone's been in line. But
yeah, maybe we can allow a minute for people to read. And again, welcome to anyone joining us that hasn't been this familiar or participative in the committee. Please jump in at any time to discuss matters at hand or any questions that you may have, okay? So on this part, does anyone have any feedback? Quality, we have citizenship just further down below. So these would be the core values for OSC.
Just one tiny thing is there is a new line under promote the security and health of the Cardano mainnet. There's 2 new lines, it seems. I think it should be just one.
Arnaud?
I'm not sure where it would fit, or if it would fit, or if it's very interesting, but there is one thing that I kind of is a pet peeve of mine, which I don't know, which I think it might be interesting to discuss at least, and potentially to put in this charter, is something around dog fooding. In the sense that I would like the people building tools on Cardano to use Cardano more, and to make sure that every opportunity of contributing to Cardano, but also to make Cardano itself a more useful and used system are taken. I'm not sure if this matters, or if maybe that's just a coda, or
no, it's a good theme to bring up, because for example, the guys at the budget committee have been asked repetitively to use smart contracts and to have systems that are using Cardano more, even things as simple as maybe I shouldn't say as simple as multi-sig. Obviously, we know, and yesterday the guys from the budget were being queried about putting all their processes in BPMN, so business process management diagrams. So if we go down each rabbit hole, we create a department just for that. And but I do agree that we should maybe have that here somewhere. Anyone wants to point out a bit more specifically where we could mention this kind of posture? Johnny?
It's actually a line that got added specifically to the constitutional text in Buenos Aires as well. It was brought up that there wasn't much mention of, needing of smart contracts in the budgetary process, as you just said. I think it was raised by Patrick, and then it got voted in as a change. So it says, where possible, try and use smart contracts as much as possible. So it is in the Constitution at the very least, if it isn't in this charter. Of course, I must caveat that by saying that Constitution isn't yet ratified by D-Reps on chip.
So just thanks, Johnny. Yeah, I'm not. I think although it's there, we could try to include it here. I was just looking into the structure here, but
I guess citizenship, as its phrase, already good enough might be to encompass kind of questions. But
could you say again? Sorry.
No, I'm just saying that the paragraph on citizenship is already probably encompassing this concern, in a sense, like, yeah, being good citizen of the Cardano ecosystem also implies being good citizen of Cardano itself.
Okay. Well, let's maybe leave it as a note and move
yeah,
on.
it's maybe a footnote and not so important.
Okay. Thanks. So I think that's the main thing for today, was to take a look at this document. And as you see, we were circulating this in Google Docs. Now it's already tentative published version. If you have any more feedback, please drop it to us on Slack or on Discord, where you can reach us. We have 2 more documents that have been
If I may.
Yes.
Sorry, I just want to confirm. So right now, where I have this set, let me go back here. It's set just 1 page below. The idea is that this document becomes the primary charter. So I'll save an archive of this if there's not already one. I just want to let you put that to the committee to get full approval to do that, or if there's anything else that we needed to change.
Guys, can we have a quick thumbs up if you agree the current documents get to be published?
Okay, looks like we do have an overwhelming majority there. So I will make that happen.
Thanks for making it more concrete, text.
Sure. Let me go back to the agenda for just a second, and then pull up those other documents for you.
Mm-hmm. So basically, we've had other documents that we can share, and I'm going to just drop a link to them on the chat. Basically, I'm not sure for the new business, cardano-addresses, is this something that Adam wants to talk to? Or, yeah, could you go ahead maybe? Please.
Yeah, so for one, welcome Arnaud. That's what he's here for primarily. So as some of you may know, over the past, I guess 6 months or so, I've been piloting our community, quote unquote, paid, although I'm an unpaid intern, maintainer program. And we decided to aim for some of the less mission critical and lower hanging fruit repos that Intersect had under its purview. And so 2 of those that we have worked with were Cardano coin selection and cardano-addresses, which are part of the former Addressia project and part of the Cardano wallet sphere of influence, if you will. Now, the interesting thing about these is at some point in the past, I don't know the exact timeline, the Cardano wallet's Addressia team was transferred from IOG employees over to Cardano Foundation employees. And so for the past 2 years, we haven't had any release or real traction on these repos because they've been co-maintained between CF and IOG. And we're all kind of aware of how that current situation looks and is unfolding at the moment. So, and thank you, Arnaud, July 2023. So with that said, Arnaud recently moved over to CF to be the head of the HAL team. And as part of that, he thinks that CF is ready and willing to take on full ownership and responsibility for Cardano addresses. We've had a little bit of discussion about Cardano coin selection, about maybe archiving it or putting it on the back burner, but we could figure that out. The big thing is this would signify a transfer of ownership, potentially at least of the repo and the maintainership responsibility from Intersect to CF. Now, one thing that was brought up in our discussions was if Intersect should retain the IP ownership over the repo, which would allow us to continue to dictate what the license is. Not that we have any reason not to trust CF to continue to develop under Apache 2 and an open and permissive license. But that is one topic of consideration. But I'll let Arnaud speak a little bit, and then we'll open the floor to everybody else to consider.
Thanks a lot, Dan. So yeah, as Aidan said, I joined the HAL team beginning of November, and I quickly realized that, well, the team has a number of, has a scope and a sphere of influence, as Aidan said, which is kind of a bit complicated. And one of the things, yeah, and I realized was, so there is a Cardano wallet, which you probably all know, and which has its own problems, and which have been transferred, and that's fine. But we have these cardano-addresses, and among the thing I wanted to do as head of this team is to make sure that our work is more, well, first of all, our work is more transparent, which means that we provide transparency on what's the team roadmap, what we are working on, what we could work on, what we plan to work on, and to also focus the team on being a kind of a Swiss Army knife kind of team for the ecosystem, working on core tools. By core tools, I mean not the core components of the Cardano ecosystem, like the node, which has its own team and own budget, but there are a number of things, and Cardano addresses is one of them. So you have a number of, small command line things which are quite useful, which are quite used actually everywhere, and they also have this, and they also have this kind of reference implementation kind of thing, where cardano-addresses is a tool where you can do all kind of stuff with keys, addresses, mnemonics, all kind of transformations, reading, writing, whatever. And that's maybe even if you don't use, or if two projects don't use cardano-addresses, they potentially rely on it as a source of as a reference implementation, as a source of truth when it comes to say, oh, what is the canonical encoding of an extended BEC32 account key for a wallet under SIP, whatever, 1852. And these are the kind of things we think, or I think, and I think we think in general in the engineering team of the CF, that where there is value in us working, and we realized, so working on this and having Powell, which is the main contributor now on cardano-addresses within my team, we quickly realized that, oh crap, I mean, this is moving sluggishly. We want to do a new release. We want to clean up the repo. We would like to add new stuff. Powell has a number of ideas that are really interesting. I mean, interesting and or debatable, but that's fine. So that's okay. So that's where I jumped on the floor and say, hey guys, what if instead of having this kind of split brain situation where the left hand doesn't talk to the right hand, and this means that we didn't have a release in 2 years, even though we have new features, and we make the tool less useful than it can be. Why not just bite the bullets, realize and acknowledge that the main team, which is maintaining this tool, is at the Cardano Foundation. So let's move or transfer or fork the repository there. Use the repository Cardano Foundation as a canonical source, and then keep publishing new releases. And I think this is also the case. So Cardano consolidation is an interesting example, because it's an interesting other problem. It serves as a reference implementation for a CIP which is related to consolidation. And it turns out that consolidation is actually an interesting problem. We've never had a satisfactory solution. And it's also one of the things that we would like to work on. So being able to use canal consolidation as also the same idea as a reference thing, as a reference implementation where anybody could go and say, oh, I want to implement consolidation in TypeScript or Julia or whatever crazy language you want to implement it, SQL. Then you have a reference implementation, you have test vectors, you have something to benchmark your stuff against, and same for addresses, same for the back32 encoding, also all the things. And that's basically the idea. So that's Adam kindly, so Adam is involved into the cardano-addresses project as the maintainer of the JavaScript part, which is also an interesting aspect because it doesn't work well, to be honest. So we were considering also saying, okay, let's drop that. Let's have a proper JavaScript implementation somewhere or contribute to an existing library. So all these small things which are quality of life for us, but also for the community at large, we think they would be better managed if we had like a clear responsibility and clear mandates from the community or whoever is in charge to say, hey, we are going to be in charge. We do the release as expected. We manage the repository, we manage the rights. And one of the things I would like also I would like also to do with this repository and potentially others is to start to spearhead this whole dogfooding thing, in particular, because what I would like us to do is in the next release of the cardano-addresses to put the next release on chain and to have a transaction on chain with a smart contract where every release will be signed with an N-of-M signature, and you will have some metadata being tracked on chain in order to start building a kind of a graph of provenance and supply chain graph about everything which is at the core of Cardano. And the reason why I want to do that is because no later than yesterday or the day before, I had a bot post a comment on an issue on one of our repo, redirecting the user to some honeypots and some phishing website. And I think this is something that will come more and more, that will be more and more often the case. Yeah, and exactly. And especially if as we all wish the ADA prices go up and the ecosystem grows, more and more people will attempt to do that. And I can't, I mean, I can't do anything but shiver if I imagine that somebody somewhere will inject Trojan horse in Cardano-addresses or Cardano wallet, or and start sifting mnemonics and private keys into a North Korean website. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to paint too dark, but so the idea of using this as a kind of good spreading this kind of effort is also something I would like to do, and of course requires a bit more control about those things. And just to be very clear, in case this is not clear, the point is not about stealing anyone's IP. The point is about delivering new stuff and faster, and being able to be more proactive with the wishes of the community. So that's the pitch. Sorry, I'm speaking very too fast maybe, and not sure if I answered or if you have enough information, but happy to answer questions.
Thanks.
Yeah, so I don't know if my question is specifically to anything that Arnaud explained here, but it's more a consideration for the committee overall, which is Cardano address, Cardano coin selection. Is there any desire that be included in the maintainer retainer program? If that's the case, in theory, that's something that should stay under Intersect, because we would have management in that regard. Wouldn't make sense to give away a repo if we're going to pay the maintainer on it, or pay somebody a stipend to maintain on it.
Yeah, so to be clear, this would be giving it fully to CF to be their responsibility to fund the ongoing maintenance and contribution. So that's part of why moving it actually out of Intersect, so that Arnaud and his team don't rely on any approval from us, just like they don't already for, I think it's Rosetta and some of the other big tool set pieces that help large exchanges, for example, be ecosystem participants. CF is already managing and maintaining those on behalf of the ecosystem. So this would just kind of move all the pieces of that puzzle finally under the CF umbrella. So yeah, we would not be financially responsible for taking care of these things as Intersect. So that's why we decided to pitch it in this direction. But go ahead, Arno.
Yeah, to that point, I think as far as I understand it, and I think, I mean, that's what's been sold to me. So I'm just trying to sell you this name, the same thing. But I think the idea of the engineering part of the CF and at least the team I'm working with and I know is really to work on stuff that work on the commons, the things which are really useful, but which don't have any kind of commercial. I mean, you can't make money with cardano-addresses. You can make money by building a tool on cardano-addresses. So yes, you can imagine Intersect or the treasury paying for its maintenance, but on the other hand, why cardano-addresses in the Haskell? Why not another thing, right? So I think there is a kind of fine print between the things which are at the core and which require like maintainer rich. I don't remember the word that Tex used, but maintainer maintenance or something like that. No, developers retainer. No. Sorry, I don't remember.
Maintainer retainer. Yeah, it's
maintainer retainer. Okay, that's a hard one. Yeah, so it's yeah. We by the way, one of the things we also want to do is not only to keep it on as it's now, but also to use that as a springboard to contribute to other ecosystems. TypeScript is an example. Rust might be another example. We know that the Rust addresses, for example, is a bit lacking in some respects. So, but to us, it's a way to keep delivering this value, and there is no budget. No budget requirements. It's all part of our purview. And it might be at some point the case that it's fully open source in the sense like it's a common, and there are other people out there that might want to contribute to it, and but at least yeah, and then there is the problem of this risk of who is going to maintain that, and we don't want to inject our animals. So it's better if it's I would say one of the founding bodies who has a mandate to keep Cardano growing.
Okay, yeah, and so I will address the point that Christian brought up in the chat here, which is that essentially we have three options. We can give full ownership of the repository, including IP, over to CF. We can continue this current plan that we have where Intersect actually owns the repo, and we just give Arnaud or whoever is the head over at CF basically full admin rights to that repository. Or we archive our copy, allow CF to fork and create the new canonical version of it, but we at Intersect retain the IP rights. And so where that becomes important to highlight the point with an example is something like Redis. As long as there is a company or an entity that is in control of the actual IP rights, they could change the license downstream on a package. And so then, of course, it's still free and open source to anybody to use up until the license was changed. But the question would be, do we want Intersect to retain ownership of the intellectual property to protect the licensing of Cardano addresses? You know, it's 6 of one, half dozen of another for me, because if nobody maintains and takes care of it, it's a dead project anyway, and it's just dead code weight. So, and like Arnaud was saying, I don't see a path to commercialization for this package either. So I don't see a reason to change it to a closed source license at any point. But that is the reason for concern and why we have these three options to consider as the OSC, how we want to deal with this and what we want to do ultimately.
Moritz, maybe you want to voice this? You're dropping on the chat.
Sure. Well, in light of what we all know, what's currently going on, I think I'd be in favor of 2 and optionally 3. But I think going for 1 right now might not be putting the best light on Intersect and everyone involved in the whole situation. And ultimately, one thing I have a concern with my with my Intersect hat on is that we're going to set a precedent of moving stuff out of Intersect, and ultimately Intersect ends up being like a hollowed out entity that we then can just fold up.
Okay, thank you. And then we have Robin.
Yeah, thanks. Just adding some things, spinning up some other scenario where Adam started with Redis as an example. I think if you look into the future, yes, maybe this package is not like directly to be commercialized, but maybe as a dependency, and it requires maybe the main product in the end to change the license of this package because of the licensing of the product. And if it's in full control of the entity selling this product, it would be just easy as that to just change the licensing. And then so not saying this could happen, this will happen. No, I'm saying it could happen. And so I'm also in favor of 2, but I would also like to ask what is your, so you will in your pitch, what are you pitching? Are you pitching for what option, or do you have a preference?
No, my preference is I want to go fast. So whatever allows me and my team to go fast and not being encumbered and not having to raise a figure to ask permission to do anything, to release a new version, to introduce. Pavel did a PR 3 weeks ago. It's not merged. That pisses me off. I mean, this is a waste of time. And I'm not pointing figures, right? I'm not saying this is anyone's fault. It's just like being able to do things faster means that we can we make the tool more useful, more up to date. We remove the craft of having 20 or 30 or 40 issues open just because, and PRs open for months or years. That's the case, right? So this is annoying. It's annoying because I think one of the things that really annoys me, and I will leave the mic after that, but it sheds a bad optics about the whole open source ethos of Cardano community. As a good open source project is a project which is easy to get involved with, which doesn't have 2,000 issues open and 45 PRs. If I come to an open source project and I can see that there are PRs open for 2 years ago, and the poor soul which opened the PR is begging for it to be included and is ping-ponging with core maintainers because there are like some misplaced commas, and I'm really not saying this is the case, but this kind of thing, like let's be good citizen, and let's make sure that our projects are clean, tidy, that they can anyone's contribution is taken into consideration quickly. We can move on fast, and we're not encumbered with the weight of having to deal with whatever qualms people are having at the head of IoT and the CF, and I don't really care, to speak clear. But yes, this is bad optics at the moment, as Janet. I'm sorry, this is just.
Thank you.
Yeah, and yeah.
Go for it.
I might have a bit of, I would say, a bit of cause here, but it is what it is, right?
Okay, thank you so much, Adam.
Yeah, and so just so we're clear, this conversation did start prior to all the drama happening. It's just we finally kind of have worked out the strategy. It's just horrible timing, right? So I would personally advocate probably for number 3, only because in my experience with trying to be the maintainer, one of the largest roadblocks to rapidly developing on this has been the existing IOG, IOE, Hydra, CI, CD pipeline of actions that are required for everything. And usually when something breaks, it's in that process, and that holds up merging and everything else. So in respect of allowing CF to actually fully go and take this on under their mantle, like they have done with the other 4 or 5 components of this same shared library, I would be okay with us archiving and or kind of keeping our Intersect copy and just pointing to the new CF fork as the new canonical source. That way they can go as fast and iterative as they want, and we can always pull it back, and we don't have to deal with the lawyers and how we transfer IP to get this done faster, in Arnaud's interest.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Moritz.
All right. I'm all for Arnaud going fast. I think he knows that I've never really been a fan of slowing people down. And as to that, I don't think there is any requirement of using Hydra at all. Is there? Do we impose that on any of the Intersect repos?
I mean, yeah, it's required for like every pull request has to go through this big entire.
Well,
does it build with 8 versions
that's the configuration of the project. I'm like all for giving Arnaud all the power of the project to decide whatever CI, whatever he wants to do with it. So I think that could be trashed right away if you felt like it. So
well, I guess yeah, we haven't really because that again came over from IOE, right? And so we haven't addressed whether or not we're allowed to rip that out and go faster. So that is a good question.
I think you are. Well, I mean, I kind of feel like that at IOE myself. So
yeah, I mean, we're in a weird position where this body has to be the one that makes those decisions, and so essentially it is time for the OSC to start doing the grown-up work.
Well, I would say the OSC should not mandate specific CI tools on projects, depending on whoever contributes to those. That just seems holding stuff back for no good reason.
Yeah, I think we could easily accomplish number 2 if we add that caveat as the OSC that they're allowed to do whatever they want with their CI/CD pipeline as part of their maintainership.
They are responsible for the release, so ultimately they are the ones who are on the hook. So like, yeah, go for it. You're responsible for the release, so do whatever you need to make that go fast.
Speaking of going fast, let's go through Johnny, and Robin and sequence, please.
Well, Moritz said what I was going to say. Is this more a question of reforming existing process than it is completely throwing out the existing repository, starting a new one, and handing over ownership to someone else? Is it a case of we need to change historical precedent to be more open for the actual workflows of people who are going to be the chief maintainers, which would put me to number 2, as long as there was a caveat or a statement made that there was going to be a reform of process that allowed things to go fast while retaining Intersect's nominal ownership.
Robin?
All good. Let's keep the pace. Let's go fast. Skip it. It's all been said.
So, like Christian, sorry.
Sorry, I said I'm for reform rather than change. If you know what I mean.
Okay, so Christian was pointing out on the chat, the path of transfer would be now we do a committee recommendation, and that goes to the governing board in memo. The governing board would approve, and then we progress things. So for today, I think we need to agree on a recommendation. Adam?
Yeah, and so we're clear that Christian's recommendation, if we go with option number 2, essentially we don't need even governing board approval, right? Because Intersect is still going to own the repo at the end of the day. So if that is our choice, then we can get started on that right away. As the OSC, we are empowered that way. The only time we had to get the governing board involved is if we were actually like moving ownership, because that has the legal implications.
Okay. So I'm just going to drop it on the chat again, like Christian wrote. So we have option 1, full ownership to CF. Option 2, share under Intersect with CF, with them as the primaries. So that's, I think, what we're aiming for. And the third option would be a lot more bureaucratic even. Can we get, I'm just gonna ask for thumbs up for option 2 because that's everyone's vouching for. And just reading, Johnny.
Seems the majority.
Yep.
Yeah, it seems like we got a majority, and I didn't see any thumbs down. And so if there is any objections to exploring pathway number 2 in the short term, please raise your hand and address them now. I don't think Tex has one, but go ahead, Tex.
Yeah, no, it's just on process here. Do we want this to be just a Cardano-addresses team here, and then that team gets oversight on those 2 repos, or admin on those 2 repos? Yeah, Christian.
Sorry, been having to do stuff in the background. We already have a team set up. Arno, is there anyone else you want to make admin on the repository, and then that will kind of close case for it?
I think the other person would be Powell, which would be the commentator. So
Paulo Jacobus?
yeah, Powell Jacobus. Yeah. He's been the core contributor for the past 2 years. So.
Okay, we'll get you set up.
Awesome. Thank you very much. That's a very nice Christmas gift. And in counterparty, I will make sure we get a release before next year.
Thank you very much, Arno.
Great stuff. Okay, so next points on the order of business, we have developer workshops. I'm not sure. We have someone from the advocates program.
Yes, Uday will be presenting today.
Thank you. Uday, go for it.
Next, I can share screen, just a quick screen. Yeah. So myself, Uday, the developer advocate, working together with Christian, Tax, and other developer advocates in open source office. We had a great progress since August, initially kind of putting some of the documentation in place and working on contribution letter and other initiative like developer survey. Also, we organized some webinar as well as workshop online. Here we're proposing for next year, if we together all the developer advocates suggesting that if we can have a continuity of the online workshop as well as in-person workshop as well. So that's kind of the main key proposal here. Online workshop, low cost, and we can do more easily. But in-person workshop requires some resources. So here, this is kind of the in summary proposal that each developer advocate will be arranging one workshop at least in their region and their time zone. And in-person workshop, each developer advocate organizing one in-person workshop as well in their city or area they live in. And as it requires kind of resources and costs, so we want to put forward. We are right now 4 developer advocates, geographically well distributed in Canada, South Africa, India, and Vietnam. So we can cover a lot more. And yeah, this is the proposal. And of course, the value add to that is that it can complement well with the online workshops and other initiative we do. We can get some in-person feedback from the developers as well, and in process also we train them as well, bring more developers on board. I'm done.
So just to give some context, this is a request from the developer advocates to add into the OSC budget. If I need to pull up the current budget, I can. We just had a budget call yesterday. Nothing came up with a question that wasn't directly answered and immediately agreed to. Adam or Lucas can speak more to that if they like, but yeah, if this is something that the committee agrees with and you'd like to add it into the budget, I can make those updates over the holiday break.
Any questions on the topic? Any clarifications from Uday?
Sorry for my ignorance here, but sorry, there's a hand up before me.
Sebastian?
No, just I want to say it's urgent in 2025 explore the in-person events because the impact is key is major in comparison to the online. The online events are fine, but the in-person events is the impact is huge. So maybe, in my opinion, we should prioritize the in-persons. And very nice idea. Congratulations.
Just aside, do we have anything on our Gitbook about the developer advocates program that we can share with the group? And let's go to Arno.
I just wanted to reiterate Sebastian's point. I think that if the goal is really to train and engage and embark more and more developers to work on and with Cardano, doing things in person, and I mean it's much better to do many small scale things like a grassroots things where you get a bunch of a dozen developers from I don't know, Mumbai or wherever you are, or Cali or wherever you're staying, and you just train them, and then the people start hacking and they can start doing stuff. I think that's that's much more valuable than big large events in one place where not everybody can go. So that's really cool. And I really wish I could benefit from your help to organize one in my hometown if you need a guinea pig.
You're already a leader on that. You're an SME on that. I don't know. Right?
In fact, the Bitler interlude was one of those experiments that we can extract really good learnings about the impact of these in-person events.
And we want to see that translated into applications and usage. That's the thing. To me, there is a metric down the road. The metric is how many transactions people start making to do random stuff and all those stuff on Cardano, and how fast we get to 95% blocked usage.
Johnny?
Back to my ignorance of that I referenced before. How many of these workshops have already happened prior to this, and how many were in person, and what kind of impact did it have? I mean, Sebastian here has talked very highly of it, so he's had an experience. I'm sorry for not knowing this coming in, but what is the history of this initiative?
Yeah, Jonathan, in this developer advocate program, we were kind of allowed to organize on our own without any additional budget. So we did it online, one workshop together online. And it was, of course, in one time zone, and one webinar where we mostly increased the developers to come and explain the Intersect plan on open source and contribution ladder. So that's kind of thing. I personally did more meetups kind of thing. I won't call them workshops. So I did 2 meetups, or 3 meetups rather. 2 in India, 1 in Vietnam. No in-person workshop conducted, and that's why this proposal comes through that we want to do that, but yeah, it has some budget implications, so we're putting that proposal forward.
Okay. So yeah, it needs the budget in order to happen. I get that. Sebastian?
Yes, I'm sure in Cardano we have a huge story of online events, but we don't have the in-person events are an area and are an unexplored area yet in comparison to online. So we have
It was just whenever you
so
made
much.
the statement that it was such a high impact that it made me wonder what the historical impact has been measurable.
Sure. Yeah, that's it.
I would add also, besides the initiatives that the guys are mentioning, we had recently the Tech Week in Argentina. We had a full room of people with 7 or 10 projects, I would think, something like that. Some of them produced things that are almost not production grade, but they're working on chain, they're doing signatures, they're doing a lot of indexing. And so I totally agree that IRL events could be a catalyst for a lot of people to get better at building in Cardano. Tex?
Yeah, a secondary part of this request would be the budget item that we have currently for OSC members to attend events. Do we rebrand that and list that as OSC or developer advocates, or do we give developer advocates their own budget line to attend events? The third option is our developer advocates, as they are compensated via a certain amount, expected to cover travel to local events on their own because they're already receiving some form of compensation. So that's a three. So the first question, I guess the answer is do we provide any additional compensation for developer advocates to attend events? Yes or no? And then if we do we bundle that with the OSC line, or do we give them their own?
Yeah, since I had my hand up already and I was going to kind of address the budget question as well, I would be in favor of adding some additional amount to the budget to help support these developer advocates, and specifically either participating in or attending or hosting some amount of these workshops. Not a blank check, not a huge amount for 2025 until we can have some measurable, quantifiable metrics on how they go, but maybe you know, a max of 4 events globally distributed in 2025, so that way we can cover hopefully all the quadrants and then measure, and then it'll be an easier pitch and an easier sell in 2026 if we can show good success with some initial modest budget. But it should be a separate line item, not coming out of their compensation that they're already getting. And then I wouldn't want to create a race condition where it's a contest between the OSC seats and the developer advocates for who gets to the budget first in terms of attending events. So let's make it a small, modest, separate item. And hopefully, I know Arnaud could help us out because Builderfest obviously had a clear-cut cost to it, that we could actually draw a hard line in the sand and say that's our max that we're willing to spend, or our average that we're willing to spend. And then Uday as well, with his experience, could help out there.
The follow-up was going to be a suggestion of the amount. Obviously, we can get those hard and fast numbers, but if we said 4 events and we did roughly 5K per event, that could potentially expand into more events if different locations were cheaper. But does that sound like an appropriate threshold to add to the budget? There is 20K, what would be in USD?
Yeah, I mean, in my experience, for a small scale like workshop event, 5K is more than enough to get you a venue and have a room for a day and projectors and whatever else, marketing materials and stuff you might need. So I think that would be okay.
It's also more than was requested in the slides.
Well, to be fair, the thing that everybody always forgets is compensating the person that has to organize the venue and everything else. It's not a one and done for those people. So if we give them a daily rate, 5K should allow them to compensate for their time as well.
I made the assumption that that would be included in the ask. My fault.
So the
Sorry, Jonathan, that was not included, but it's fair point. I mean, we estimated around 3K, but there is no personal kind of the cost involved in that. It was all the venue kind of.
and then I would separate that to say is that any cost for compensation would be for other attendees to the event. I believe the committee would agree here, but I don't think we should compensate the developer advocates anything additional as they are already receiving compensation.
So one thing as well in terms of orienting the developer advocates is, for example, in Argentina, they had half the event was Cardano standard dev, and then they had midnight. So this team came over and helped lead that hackathon. We also had a full day. I'm not sure, a lecture on Aiken. That was an end-to-end introduction that was very, very self-contained. So I just wanted to encourage Uday and the team to come over to discuss what could be done in certain events and how they could get talent and big brains there to introduce technologies or an overview of things. Okay, so don't be shy to come over again and say, okay, now we have the space, we need the big brains to come and speak or think, do we want to do it in a lecture model or a hackathon model? Obviously, the second one is a bit more enticing, but requires some background knowledge by participants. So we would love to have those discussions here. Adam?
Yeah, if we're all in agreement, I was hoping I could get to my CIR role explanation real quick in our final 4 minutes here.
Sure.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay, yeah. So recently, between the TSC and the product committee, we have been trying to essentially flesh out the attendance in the CIR, which is the Core Infrastructure Roadmap Working Group. And now the goal of this team, if you will, is kind of to serve as a filter on people proposing projects that the Cardano ecosystem should work on. So we should build out partner chains. We should build out L2s like Midgard. We should build an alternative Rust node or an alternative node implementation. And allowing these things to get proposed to go on the roadmap, not with a specific dollar amount or a specific vendor in mind, but simply to say, this is something that we want as Cardano as a whole to develop for the ecosystem. And so that could be research, it could be new product development. And essentially what it does is it gets it into the roadmap and the sphere of the product committee and the technical steering committee for consideration into their annual budgets. So the proposal is that each of the 3 committees send at least 2 delegates to this working group to help as those requests come in to kind of filter them out, figure out which bucket they fit most accurately under, and then forward them on to their respective committee for prioritization and things like that. And I know Sebastian in my message yesterday, I think it was, already kind of raised his hand and said he would be interested in volunteering. And we don't need a decision today. We're looking at spinning this up in the new year, obviously, with the holidays coming up. But just something for everybody to think about if that is something that would interest you in participating in. I won't be able to do it because I will be serving in my capacity on the technical steering committee already. And so I can't double vote in that working group. So I will be there, but so we will need, in addition to Sebastian, hopefully at least one other person that's willing to participate in that working group in the new year. So yeah, and timing, I know Moritz is definitely a tough one. And that has been the problem with the CIR is they've struggled to get quorum recently. Just because it's been hard to get everybody together for meetings. So definitely a consideration. So thank you for at least signaling your interest. So we'll make sure we keep you in the loop. But yeah, thank you. And if anybody has any questions, but I know we're at time here, but go ahead, Tex.
Yeah, I don't have any questions specifically. I just wanted to highlight one thing that came from yesterday. We did share the documents earlier. We're going to try to get to them if we had time. Just wanted to highlight on the contribution ladder specifically. We now know, as of yesterday's public call, that the contribution ladder is going to be having budget implications. So by the end of January, the expectation would be is that we can get that finished and out to the community. That's just what's best. If it's going to take longer, it'll take longer. But I want to encourage everyone not to give you homework over the holiday, but let's please just give that a review, be familiar with it, and we can take our meetings in January and make sure that we're solid on that.
Last comment from myself too is just so everyone's aware, we haven't started incubation until we finalize the acceptance criteria, but we do have 4 projects pending wanting to come in through that process. So I told them they can expect Q1 to start going through it once we actually finalize that criteria. So I do recommend the committee get in and review that. And then Adam, maybe this is where your piece there that you're talking about, projects can go through there for review as well to determine if Intersect, before it goes to the committee to be adopted, maybe that's how they get their proposal reviewed, and then they can strategically align themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds like a good fit and good rationale. And of course, everything will have a requirement to be open source if it's going to come under the Intersect umbrella one way or another. So
yeah, and I'll try and find a open source license expert if it ever becomes a question.
Great stuff. Anyone wants to raise anything else? So happy holidays, and see you January 9th to UTC.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.